Hi, everyone. We got a couple minutes before we start here, so I'll just wait a minute or two for people to jump on, and we'll jump into college soccer recruiting. All right, we'll get started. First off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dan Rothert. I was Raudel's college coach um, at Loras College in Iowa. So obviously, I know most of you, if not all of you, do a summer training program with Raudel. He's a great player for me, but he was also a great leader and a great person. And he actually helped run my little soccer club that I run. When he was here, he was director of coaching, and while he was a student athlete for me. So I've known Raudel for a very long time. I recruited him, and then I was able to coach him and had the honor of still being a great friend of his and things like that. So I think you're lucky to be working with him. He's a great coach and a great person. This is a webinar format, so it's just me talking. If you do have questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, or even raise your hand at the bottom. You can type them in the Q&A in the chat, and I'll get to them maybe as we go or even at the very end. So what I do is I run Top Student Athlete Recruiting. It's really a soccer-specific recruiting agency where I help college coaches and prospects connect to find great fit opportunities based on your priorities as a student athlete, what you want to study, where you want to be in the country, those types of things. And then also based on, your ability level. And that's a big part of it as well, too. Financials is a part of your priorities. Everybody's got different priorities in this process. So, that is what I do for a living. And I really find it to be really rewarding because every student I work with is different and they all have different priorities. And every coach is looking for different things based on abilities, positions, things of this nature. So that's what Top Student Athlete Recruiting does. I'll talk a little bit more about that as the process goes along. But we're here tonight to talk about college soccer recruiting. It can be a confusing process, and it can be a lot of things you can do to give yourself a better chance. And we're going to talk about a lot of those things as well. So I'm going to share my screen as we get into this, and feel free to, like I said, ask questions along the way, or we'll save them for the very end as well. But obviously, my email address and phone number are here. I am recording this, so I will be able to send it out to folks who were not here tonight, and Raudel can do that as well. But if you need to get a hold of me, or you have a question you want to ask personally, feel free to email me or send me a text, and I'll certainly help you out. I help kids from all over the country and finding great fit opportunities, and there's so many different choices out there and options. But I think college soccer is such a cool thing that I want people to be able to experience that. I was a college coach, men's and women's, for 24 years. Had a lot of success doing it. And I think a big part of that success was attention to detail and being able to recruit the right people. And recruiting was the lifeblood of that process. And I also oversaw recruiting for the whole athletic department at Loras College, where I worked for a long time as associate athletic director. So I understand the ins and outs of it. One of the things I help the people I work with in addition to helping connect with the right fit opportunities is help them save money on college, help them understand how to get more scholarship, how to get more academic aid and things like that, and how to get a best offer. I think it's like buying a house or buying a car. Never settle for your first offer. See what else is out there. And that's important as well. Always ask for more. See if we can do that. But you got to do it in a way that doesn't insult the coach, right? That's just another one of the things I help with. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts in this process. One of the things people think about is if you're good enough, coaches will find you. All right, that's not the case. You can't just hope someone's going to come to Tulsa, Oklahoma and find you as a player and want to recruit you. Now, that can happen here and there, but most scholarships and most roster spots go to those who market themselves. You can't just wait for coaches to come find you. Coaches go to events and showcases and tournaments and things like that with a plan. So when I was coaching, and I stopped coaching about 4 years ago, I would go to a tournament and I would know at 8 a.m. on field 1, I need to go watch Raudel play. All right. And then at 8:30 in the second half, I would move to a different field and watch a different player play. These are people who had been in touch with me, who had shown some interest in my school. I had seen their video. I liked them a little bit from that, enough to go watch them play more. They need to know when and where you're playing. So as you get into this process, depending on where you're at, one of the things I encourage is, if your good team's going to play in tournaments or showcases or events, either local or away from home, letting coaches know when and where you're playing, in addition to having a highlight video so they can kind of see the initial pieces of your game. And so they want to come see you play more so they can evaluate you. That's a big part of this is you need to market yourself. And, just one email may not work, right? Sometimes you catch people on their email and they miss it and it's the bad timing or things like that. You need to ping them multiple times in hopes that maybe something will happen. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Maybe they're not looking for a player like you. Maybe their position isn't needed, whatever that might be. You need to be able to understand that and be okay with that too. Sometimes you just got to move on and go forward in the process. Scholarships. We'll talk about scholarships here, but scholarships are usually partial. Full ride is very rare in soccer. It's different than football and basketball. Football and basketball are head count sports. Every player on the roster either is a full ride scholarship or they're a walk-on, which means they get no athletic money. That's it. That's the only in soccer, it's different. It's partial scholarships, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But you shouldn't be saying you need an athletic scholarship. Because I know kids that go to schools that don't have athletic scholarships that got a better deal than schools that do offer athletic scholarships. I guess I have kids that have gone to Division III schools that don't offer athletic scholarships that have gotten better deals than kids going to Division I schools. So don't say you need an athletic scholarship in this process. Try to find the best value possible. And because soccer scholarships are usually partial, grades are really, really important. All right. So I know there's some younger players on your freshmen, sophomores, things like that. Grades. I can't preach it enough. Your freshman grades matter. All right. And if you can get really good grades, that's going to increase your stock. And so let me explain a little further, and then I'll answer some questions too. But, there's 204 teams playing Division I men's soccer. And each team gets 9.9 scholarships. That's the maximum they can give. They don't have to. The school decides if they want to give less than that, they could. But let's just say the school has 9.9 scholarships. It's divided amongst the whole team. So let's say there's 28 to 30 players on a roster, which is pretty normal. We're looking at about a third scholarship per player if the coach decided to give each player the same amount. The coach decides how much they're going to give, okay? To each player. Some players get more than others. Some players could get a lot of money and some players could get none. and our walk-ons. A lot of times your freshman year, your first year, you go in on a lesser scholarship. And then if you prove your worth, which they think you're going to do, but one of the hardest things as a college soccer coach is to judge how well someone's going to transition to the next level. Then they'll give you more, maybe sophomore, junior, senior year, things of that nature. But they can combine that scholarship with athletic money. So, for instance, a lot of times, you know, you'll see a player maybe get a half scholarship for soccer. Let's just say you're a really good player. Coach is going to give you a half scholarship, and you could get another half scholarship because you're a 4.0. So maybe that's a full ride, but it's a combination of half athletic, half academic. Or I've seen, a third scholarship plus another 40% for academics, and now we're looking at 75% scholarship. But most people who are playing college soccer, if I'm being totally honest, are paying a little bit of money. It's pretty rare you're going for completely free at Division One. Now there are places like junior colleges where a lot of kids are maybe going for free and having opportunities there because of the cost is less, right? And they can give really good scholarships too. But we'll talk about it here momentarily. Division Two has 200 teams playing, 199, 9 scholarships to divide up amongst the team. A lot of international players at Division Two. Division One's about 30 to 40% international, so it is not easy. You're also competing against the world for these opportunities as well. So you understand that. Division Three has 400 schools playing around the country. There are no athletic scholarships. Sometimes Division Three gets a bad rap as not being great soccer. I coached Division Three for a long time. I hesitate to say that. I think there's some really good Division Three teams that could easily play with a lot of Division One teams. Maybe not the top Division One teams, but my teams were beating Division One teams on a regular basis when I was coaching. NAIA is a separate division. It's a separate governing body. It's called National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. There's about 200 teams playing in that group, and in that group, they can give up to 12 scholarships. So there is some scholarshiping in NAIA that's a little bit different. There are some teams in NAIA that are very international heavy, and there's some teams that are more American heavy. But that's it's each school's preference a little bit, how much money they can give to international students and things like that. One of the things I would encourage is look at rosters, see where players are from. If the whole roster is international and you're not international, it might be not worth your time to look at that school very much. It's going to be hard to get on the roster. NJCAA is junior colleges. I think junior college is an overlooked opportunity. There's some really good soccer at junior colleges, which could, initially be a lower cost to start with. And then, you can transfer as a sophomore, junior, senior, or sophomore, junior, and get a really good opportunity, maybe go to a higher level, things like that. There's some other schools, Christian colleges, things like that they're playing. So all in all, there's about 1,400 schools playing college soccer, and the scholarshiping is definitely is different for each level, but it's certainly opportunities are out there with 1,400 schools playing. Women's, I know there's probably not a whole lot of women's on here, but you might have siblings and things like that. It's just a little bit different. There's a little more schools playing soccer on the women's side because of Title IX, and then scholarships are a little bigger at Division I and Division II. So just a little bit different in that regards. So there's 14 scholarships versus 9.9 at Division I. So what are your chances? If you look at this, there's 450 high school students playing boys soccer across the country, and there's 40,000 college soccer players. So 7% of high school players play college. Of those 40,000 college soccer players, only 13,000 are Division I or Division II. All right. And only 2.8% of high school players are Division I or II. So it's a pretty low percentage. Are you the best 2.8%, in your area, in your state, those types of things. It doesn't always work out that way, right? But, that's definitely part of it. Of those 13,000 too, approximately 30% of them are internationals. All right. And let's be generous. Now this transfer portal thing is happening a lot. And a lot of players are moving and transferring on a given year. And so, if you factor in internationals and transfer portal, there might be about 3,500 new spots a year around the country for new incoming freshman players that are domestic, those types of things. So, it's tough. And then you add in junior college transfers and that type of thing. It can be really, really challenging. So it's not easy, and we want to make sure you have the best opportunities out there. So there's some major mistakes in recruiting. We'll talk about some things. There's some questions popping up too, and I'll get to those. But I want to make sure, we cover the bases, and we may cover some of those questions through the course of this. But this is a little video that a buddy of mine and I made, and just talks about recruiting mistakes. Kind of funny, very sarcastic, but give it a listen.
Are you going to play in college?
Yeah, probably D1.
That's cool for who?
Either North Carolina or Duke. Maybe Wake Forest or State if I have to. I'm not sure yet.
Are those coaches at the game today?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them yet. I'm only a junior.
So how do you know you can play for them?
They all sent me letters asking me to come to their camp so they could get a better look at me, so they definitely want me.
That sounds stupid. They probably just want you to come to their camp.
Plus my coach said it's an NCAA that period and they can't recruit me until after July 1st prior to my senior year.
That's stupid too. Of course they can recruit you. I have friends who are sophomores and are committed to schools already.
I'm not worried about it. My dad's buddy said I can play D1 for sure.
You are a tool. Did you even send them video?
No, I don't have any. I think my coach was going to get some and sent to some schools randomly.
That's a pretty stupid idea. I heard they get a lot of tapes sent to them.
I'm not worried. I was all conference.
You are a tool. Don't you think most kids who want to play in college were all conference in high school? Do you have good grades?
I have a 2.5, and that's all I need to be eligible.
You are getting dumber the more I talk to you. What if you can't get into a school with that? Or what if the coach prefers athletes with better grades?
But I'm really good. My mom says so.
Your mom is stupid too. Don't you even want to look at D2 and D3 schools?
I heard they suck. I'm pretty sure I could play at any D2 school that I wanted to.
You suck. You know there are like 15,000 high schools and 1,000 colleges, so only the best players in the country can play D1. Have you ever been to a D2 or D3 game?
No, they suck.
You suck.
Like I said, pretty sarcastic. I laugh every time I watch it, but the kid made all the mistakes in the world, right? So some of the mistakes they make: target the wrong colleges, right? You got to be honest with yourself and don't target schools that aren't good fits. Athletically, right? Everyone wants to play Division I. That's what they've seen. That's what it's what's on TV. Especially in other sports. So many prospects overshoot in the process. They need to realize that it's really difficult, and you need to go to college games and see levels of play. Like he didn't, he thinks that level is not good, right? Division II, Division III. Doesn't even know the levels of play. Doesn't even know anything out there. So you need to be able to see that and know for yourself that, that level of play is good for me, and understand it. I think cast a wide net. You got to cast a wide net to all levels. Yeah, you can shoot for the stars. Go for it. I'm not going to burst anyone's bubble and say you can't do that. All right. But if you're not getting interest from those levels, but you are getting if you're not getting Division I interest, but you're getting Division III interest or NAIA interest, that's probably where your skill set lies. Right? Probably the level of play that's right for you, if that's the type of coaches that are reaching out to you. You can still reach out to more. I have a lot of kids that I work with that they'll get a lot of Division III, small school, NAIA interest, and then we'll go down the road with those schools because we like them and they're interested in them, but we also still might keep reaching out to higher level programs that might be good fits. And And once in a while, yeah, it does happen where the player gets better, or maybe they were missed out on, and we still open those doors and see if anything can happen. But again, they have to have room on their roster. They have to have a need for a player like you, and you got to be a right fit. Academically, schools that are above your academics. If you can barely get into a school, you're not going to get much scholarship money from them. All right, merit money for your academics. So that's part of it. And I had a lot of kids reach out to me in my time that couldn't even get into my school, and it's just kind of a waste of time for a coach. So knowing what your grades are, looking at the school and seeing how you might fit in with the grades, is important. If you're not, if you're not going to get into Harvard, don't reach out to Harvard. All right, it's kind of wasting your time and wasting the coach's time. Financially, targeting schools that are going to be out of your price range. Look into them, see what the price range is on some of these schools. Like I said before, it's rare that anyone's getting a full ride. Most people are paying, a decent amount of money to go to school and play soccer. That's just the way this is. But so reach out to schools that fit your price range, or again, cast a wide net. You can reach for the stars, but also have some alternative options that might fit better in terms of the financial piece, state schools that potentially that have soccer, versus only private schools, or junior colleges and things like that could play a part in that. And then what's the overall experience? Is it a winning team? What's the culture? What's the area of the school? Is it a fun place? What are you looking for in college? And I truly think what you put into a school and what the effort you put in, you get out of it. But, is it right for you? Does it have everything you're looking for? Does it have the major you're looking for? All these things. Again, I said cast a wide net. I think prospects that contact coaches from a wide variety of levels have much better results in the long run. Don't rule anybody out. Don't, look down on programs because they're a certain division. Listen to everybody, hear what's out there. I think a lot of kids are surprised when they go visit some of these campuses and see what they're all about. But, you can't just hope and pray you're going to land at your dream school and only have 2 or 3 options. You got to go where you want it too. If you want to play, you got to go where you want it. You can't just show up and be on a roster. There's no such thing as a walk-on, really. Like, walk-ons are recruited too. They're just kids that don't get any scholarship money. They just ask you to be a walk-on. There's very few places that have a tryout. You can actually just walk on to a team anymore. That doesn't really work that way. Too many kids have a false sense of security. The kid said he was all conference, right, in the video, and you should be recruited. And the other kid laughed at him, right? A lot of awards and accolades doesn't mean you're going to get recruited. Coaches don't really care. They only care if you're a good player or not. So there's plenty of kids out there who weren't all conference, who are just as good or better. Maybe they're in a better conference than another kid, and they didn't get these awards, but they're just they're great players. College coaches decide if you're recruitable for them. Nobody else. Someone's dad says you're recruitable or something like that. Even the club coaches and high school coaches, it's the college coach decides if you're recruitable for them. I hear it all the time. Oh, that my coach told me I'm Division I. Yeah, I don't think so, but that's my opinion, and that might be different than the college coach's opinion too. But I think that you need to find out. Each college coach is looking for something different, and that's important to know. You'll get a lot of camp invites in this process and emails from coaches that are saying, "Oh, thanks for the email you sent me," or "We saw, we got your name at this tournament. We'd love to invite you to our ID camp." Those don't mean anything unless they get really personal. All right, and coaches can't personally contact you until after June 15th of your sophomore year. All right, I know there's a question on here that said, when should you start this process? When should you really dive into it? I think coaches are watching players their sophomore year. I truly do. They're starting to develop a list of players they want to recruit and have on their campus and things like that. But I think sophomore year is a good time to really start the process, because you can start feeling places out. You can start looking at schools and thinking about this process and get your name out there. But you're only probably going to get mass emails back, and camp invites and things like that because they can't personally contact you till after June 15th of your sophomore year. But I do think sophomore year is you know, is a big time. A lot of kids are decided before they're seniors. Some kids it's partway through their senior year. So if you start, sophomore year, you get on radars, things like that. Junior years, you're starting to get visits and things like that. That takes it's a little slower burn and it's not as stressful. That's my opinion. But I've had kids that work, don't start till they're juniors. I've had some kids that don't even start till their senior year. They decide they want to play college soccer. You can still find a place, but some doors open and some doors close in that process. So everybody's journey is a little bit different. You also have to be ready for it. You got to want to do some work to do this because you got to reach out to coaches and put your name out there and things like that. Don't wait until it's too late. Like I said, I've had some kids that have waited till their seniors to do this, but recruiting, I think you get on radars, mostly sophomore year. I think freshman year you should just be having fun. That's just my opinion, unless you're the top 1% of 1%. But even junior year is okay as well. But you might not hear anything for a long time, but like I said, it makes it a little bit of a slower burn. But it's not too late if you're going to be a senior right now either. I think that there's still a lot of colleges. I mean, I can tell you right now, if you were just graduated high school and you wanted to play college soccer and you don't have a place to play yet, you can find a place. It might not be a school you've heard of, all right, but there's a lot of coaches still looking for players for next year. That's the truth of the matter. So, and don't expect your coach to help you, right? So every coach is different. Your club coaches, your high school coaches have different experiences in the recruiting aspect. It varies. Their level of comfortability in this varies. Some have a lot of connections and can help you. Some can only connect you with the school they went to. Some have no connections, and it's extra work for them, right? They're not paid to do that typically. Your high school coach or your club coach, that's a lot of extra work to be asking them to do, and they have families and lives and things like that. But ask them if they're comfortable helping you in the process. They may do a great job, and that's awesome. Or they might say, I just really I can't do that. I don't have time for that, or whatever their answer might be. So just ask. I don't think it hurts to ask, right? ID camps and showcases are a thing in this process, right? ID camps are where you sign up as an individual, and you go to a camp and basically get looked at. You get identified as somebody that they want to recruit. Basically, you go and scrimmage in front of college coaches. That's really what it comes down to. You might get some learning time out of the camp if it's a longer ID camp over a couple of days where you learn the process or how that coach likes to play and what their style of play is and things like that. But typically, it's they want to see how you fit in, how you train maybe, and then how you play in games. And they want to see if you're a good fit for their program. And a lot of times they're money makers, right? So a lot of times the coaches already know the kids they're really interested in, and they still have an open invite. They still have 500 kids at their ID camp, and they're trying to make a little money for their program, for their assistant coaches, whatever it might be. So there's a little bit of gray area. It's cloudy. Is it real? Should I really go to that camp? Is it really going to help me out, or is it not? I will send it to Raudel, and I'll have him send it to you. One of the things I have made in my process is a worksheet about ID camps and are they worth it? And, I think you should have a budget. I think you should know what the return on investment is based on if that school is a good fit for you, what the cost is. Do I need to travel there, stay overnight? These types of things. I also think you need to know what you need to do to maximize those opportunities. Like, how do you do little things that make you stand out? Not be a ball hog or things like that, but do you do the little things like introducing yourself to a coach? Do they know who you are at the camp before the camp? And then when you get there, they know who you are and things like that, and what camps to target and things like that. But I'll share that worksheet with Raudel and make sure he shares it with you, because I think as some of you dive into this process, that could be really helpful. And you could chase camps all day. You go to camp every day, probably all summer, and spend tens of thousands of dollars. I've seen kids do it. or you can have a little more strategic targeting of those, and help. One of the things I do is help break it down. Now, after the kids that I work with fill out the worksheet, we break it down and I talk to them about specific camps and how they may or may not help those kids. I'm meeting with a client here in a little bit, right? And after I get off this call, and I know that they've targeted a couple camps that might be out of their league, I'll have that hard conversation. I'll tell them, I know that school. I talked to that coach recently, and they're pretty much done recruiting for the class of 2024 because they only need 3 new players. So going to their camp really isn't going to help his cause. Just letting him know the truth so he doesn't chase something that's not there. Having a highlight video is important when you're reaching out to college coaches so that they can kind of see a little bit about you before they want to come see you play. They need to be impressed. They need to say, oh yeah, I like Dan's video. I'm going to go watch Dan play because I'm going to this showcase. I want to see that player play more. I want to have them come to our ID camp because I think they look pretty solid. Those things are important. One thing I'll tell you about ID camps and those emails and stuff like that, you might get a mass email from a coach. Hey, and it looks like a mass email. Hey, Dan, please, thanks for reaching out. Love you to have you come to our ID camp so you can see for yourself what we're all about and we can see you play in person. A lot of times, one of the things I say is ask the coach for a conversation. Say, hey, coach, thanks so much for reaching out. I'd love to learn more about your program. You think we can jump on a Zoom call sometime soon because I'm really interested in coming to your camp, but it's a pretty big investment for my family and I to fly across the country and attend your camp on and stay in hotels and things like that. And I just want to make sure, that we're on the right page here. And if you get interest back and the coach sets up a Zoom call with you, game on, right? If they're going to spend 20, 30 minutes on a call with you, they're probably interested enough and they liked your video and they thought you were good enough. If they ghost you and don't respond, ping them again. But if they don't get back to you, we know the answer, right? So those are some things that could play in there. Some other advice: be in shape when you go to tournaments, showcases, camps. Be fit, be really fit, because you got to stand out. All right, you don't want to be the person asking for a sub or you're getting beat because you're gassed at the end. And some of these events and camps are in the off season, so you need to really amp up your game. There's a fine line between the right amount of contact and being annoying. If you're not getting answers from coaches and you keep hitting them up over and over again and they still aren't reaching back to you, sometimes you just got to back off. Use your computer to type emails. I've seen a lot of emails, especially recently, where people left out words and you could tell they were typed with their thumbs and it leaves out a little bit. So I suggest using your computer over a phone. And then have voicemail on your phone. A lot of kids don't have voicemail or their voicemail is full. Check your voicemail, check your email daily, and have a 24-hour rule about getting back to a coach. All right, because if you reach back to a coach quickly, you move up the list ahead of somebody else because you're quick to respond and you got back to them right away. And that's a big part of this. Coaches, they have to narrow down their list some way, somehow. They start with a big list of players. I'm going to tell you, they start with probably hundreds of players that might be interested in their school, maybe thousands, and they narrow it down, right? And one of the ways they narrow it down is who's communicating well. I'd start with a list of a couple hundred players, of players I had seen play over the course of a couple of years, through club, through camps, through things like this. I cast a wide net, just like I'm telling you to. I cast a wide net, and I'd respond to the players who responded back to me. And then we started back and forth. And then it narrowed down to, 30 or 40 pretty quickly because those are the kids that were communicating well, moved up the list. So communication is a big deal. Have a voicemail, check your voicemail, respond. Respond within 24 hours to texts, emails, things of that nature. So, what I do is I use my experience and connections to help prospects and their families, gain more exposure and find the right fit college to attend and compete at, save money on college costs. And my average client saves a lot of money because we know how to ask for more in the process. And then facilitate the process from start to finish by having an individualized recruiting plan, help reduce stress of the process, by helping save parent and teenager relationships. All right. It's easier sometimes when I'm telling you to do something than a parent, stuff like that. So there's some things going on there, but trying to help you out in that process to make it an easier process, find great fit opportunities and stuff like that. Some great questions have popped up, and I'm open to questions now. And if you have private questions, you can certainly jump on and send me a text or an email. My number's on the screen. Do you see scholarships increasing as soccer becomes more popular? Difficult question. I think soccer is going to become more popular at colleges. Like I showed you on the screen, like women have more opportunities right now because of Title IX, and some schools didn't offer men's soccer that offered women's and things like that. So like University of Oklahoma State, they have women's soccer, but they don't have men's soccer, right? I could see those schools adding soccer here in the future, especially as enrollment in college is declining a little bit and things like that. They like that enrollment. I don't know that the scholarship increasing thing is going to have to be more of a bigger conversation at probably the national level, because scholarship thing is the reason there aren't as many scholarships in soccer is because it's an equity thing. All right, because football exists and football carries 75 full ride scholarships at a school, there's less and less they have to match it up. So women's soccer has more scholarships than men's because they want to try to even out the number of scholarships. That's why volleyball has, full rides on the women's side. All right. It's a full ride opportunity. So those things are there. Raudel's on here now. He's saying to ask questions. I'll let him in here in a minute. And then clubs put a lot of emphasis on, National League, Regional League, these ECNL. They put pressure on kids to play. I've heard them say you won't play high school or in college if you're not in Regional League or National League. Is it beneficial to play before they're a freshman and sophomore? I mean, it might help you get in the door with those teams, but I am completely anti that. So, like, in terms of like the pressure piece, yes, do some of those leagues get more exposure than others? They do. That's the more coaches might be at those events. However, I don't think you should give up high school or playing with your friends or traveling across the state to just train and then maybe play in some games with chasing a dream of playing college soccer when you could have been playing high school and maybe that was the peak of your career and you missed out on that too. I've seen too many kids that have done this chase and they've ended up not playing college, and then during that chase they gave up a lot of other stuff too, and so they missed out on kind of being a kid, right? I'm not a big fan of it. I think that that pressure is about making money. They want to make money for their program and their club, and but I do think there is some benefit to being in some of those leagues. I think in particular, ECNL and MLS Next. I think those are the two big ones. I don't know that the other ones carry as much weight. I do another thing with that too. One of the other things I do is I have a whole process about choosing a club and is it worth it? And should you do it? And is it worth the time and energy and investment of chasing that versus just staying local and being in your more regional club? And can you get to play in college from a more regional or local club? Definitely, you certainly can. You got to put in more work. You might have to market yourself a little bit more. You might have to have an advocate, outside of your club because maybe your club doesn't have the coaching staff that the other club does. But I think you can have that. A lot of the kids I work with, in particular, are in those situations, right? Or maybe they're multi-sport athletes and they don't play GA or they don't live in an area that has or ECNL or any of that stuff. So those things, that's a great question. What is the best way to present player marketing videos? Right now, I think email. I mean, I really, honestly, my personal opinion is Instagram and Twitter and that are just noise. Like coaches don't really go on there and like search for players. That's just not what they're doing. They direct communication with them to show them your video, whether it's email or if you're lucky enough to get a phone number of a coach, you can text it to them. Those things are real. But I don't think coaches, or I know coaches don't just go sit on Instagram all day and hope they're going to find kids. Like it's noise. They make you feel good. They like your video because that's what they're supposed to do because but at the end, that's not how they're searching for kids. But I do think your video should show everything your position should do. If you're a center back, I mean, you got to be able to show how you win ball, win the ball in the air, and what your one-on-one duels are on the ground, and what your distribution is like. You can have a good video as a center back. Some people are like, well, I'm a center back, I don't score. You can still have a great video. You just got to show what that position would show. And what needs to show, what does a good center back do? Let's show all the things a good center back does. Same for forward, same for any other position. And strong, all your best plays at the beginning. You got to wow a coach. It should be 2 to 3 minutes long. It shouldn't be too long. And you also potentially have a video of a full game. So maybe a coach says, hey, I really liked your highlight video, Dan. Do you have a full game? Because they want to see your mistakes too. And then you send them a good full game video, or you have a good full game video on your profile and things like that. So, those are all things that are important. When should a player start focusing on soccer only? Oh, great question. It depends what they're doing, where they live, what you're looking for in this. I mean, are you giving up? Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of giving up everything to chase a dream if that dream might not happen. But if they're not playing as much, or they're just kind of more in love with one than the other, and they really, really they're really goal oriented, focused on, this is my dream. I want to play college soccer. I want to get to that point. There might be a time that becomes a thing. When it gets in the way and it becomes a challenge, like and Raudel would agree with this. I had a kid this year, and he was trying to run cross country and track at the same time he's playing serious club and high school soccer, and his rundown, like he just couldn't. It was getting in the way. Like, yes, it's great to want to do multiple things and have fun doing it, but at the same token, that player was burnt out. They couldn't play at the level they needed to play at, and those things became challenging to that player. We're slowing him down a little bit, so maybe it was time for him to back away from the cross country and track thing, so he can focus on the soccer piece and show his best. But I think every situation is totally different. I think that's hard to make that decision. I mean, I've had players that play. I have a girl that I worked with this year. She's going Division II, and she played 5 sports in high school. Still played some club. Was able to do it all, and maybe if she would have focused on soccer, she might have gone to Division I. But she had a great experience, and there's nothing wrong with what she's doing. And then, at what age did you start gathering footage? That's a great question. I don't think it needs to be too early. I would say sophomore year is probably the right time. Start gathering footage sophomore year. A video after every season, because you're going to show your growth as a player. Those things could be, marvelous, right? It could be like, okay, they showed this progress. Look at me now. Or I played a different position now. My coach made me a outside back versus a center back. And so now I have to have an outside back video, but I have a center back video. You can show different things as you go. So those are Those are important. And that kind of leads into my next question that's on here. How versatile does a player need to be to possibly get on a team? Not necessarily their main position. Yeah, if you can show up for some versatility, it might help your cause, right? Because if a coach is, some coaches are recruiting by position, and they might say, I'm only recruiting a center back. This is what I want. You got to be played center back before, those types of things. Other coaches recruit good players, and they make a system work around what you're bringing in, and just finding really good players and make a system around them, right? So you have two kind of varied approaches to recruiting from college coaches in terms of that. But versatility is going to help your cause. There's no question, right? If you can play multiple positions, you might get different answers from different coaches. I had a player this year that was a left back in club, and they played center mid in high school. And didn't know what they were recruited for both. Some schools were recruiting them as a center mid. Some schools recruited them as an outside back. And they ultimately got picked up by a school who said, you know what, we think you're going to be a center back or a left back for us based on what we got graduating and things like that. But that doesn't rule out, that you could be a center mid in the future, but that's where we think you're going to fit in. They committed to that school. So versatility does help. But I don't know that, there's other kids that's what they are. They're center backs, and they play their whole life, and they're recruited as center backs, and it works out too. But I do think it can help. It's not going to hurt you to be versatile. Some great questions. Trying to stop this share here. See my face a little better. Yeah, so anyhow, what I do, like I said, I help connect people. I answer a lot of these questions. I get on calls and help people figure out what camps they need to attend, or based on their recruiting, or what we need to do to ping the right schools, or what we need to do next in the process, or even what clubs you need to play for, or should you be playing multiple sports or not. And I'll have these conversations with everybody I'm working with. It's a very personalized service. I only work with about 50 players on a given year. And try to connect them all at a time, period. So I have kids that are from everywhere from freshmen through seniors right now that are working with me. Seniors are going to jump off and commit. Freshmen are going to be with me a lot longer, right? But that's okay. It's a longer process to really kind of sort through this whole thing and do it with a little less pressure than just jumping in later in the process. But if there are questions, if you want to talk to me more about what I offer, you can reach out to me. topstudentathlete@gmail.com or 563-564-6122. If there are other questions that you just want to reach out to me about, feel free to do that. I'm open to anything. Certainly give you my best advice I can give you. And Raudel's a great resource as well, but it's always nice to hear from somebody else too. So thanks for joining me tonight. Hope you found today helpful. I'll stick around for a minute or two if there's another question or two that pop up. Thank you. Recruiting help, someone asked about typical fees. It varies a little bit, but typically some are better than others. My fee is a one-time fee, get me the whole time. So to be transparent about it, if you want more information about that, I'll send you that. But my fee is, $2,500 or so. So that is I'm transparent. I'm gonna be upfront about it. So, but it's one time. You don't pay year to year like some other things do. So. All right, I'm gonna jump off here. Any other questions? Send me a personal email, okay?